Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the broadcast this evening. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator, and good evening to all our colleagues on the platform. There have been changes for us being made on our platform. So, first of all, let me invite you to join me in wishing our former Foreign Minister good luck in his new endeavor. And then let me also invite you to please join me in congratulating our new minister, substantive minister, Madam Bianca Ojukwu, on her appointment as a substantive foreign minister. And of course, one of us on this platform, that one I'm absolutely certain of, he's always been with us, who's just been appointed as Minister of State on Foreign Affairs. We congratulate all of them. We wish them well. And especially for our colleague who has always joined us, I hope he will be a faithful transmitter of our views and ideas to where they matter. So congratulations all.
Thank you, sir. Sir, this week I want to start with something that has been making the rounds and someone called to my attention. And I thought, yeah, that would be a good point for us to maybe start the program with today. And that is this issue of xenophobia in South Africa and how that over the years has gradually, initially was sporadic, but now seems to be something that's growing and evolving into the norm. Some of the videos I saw were not just targeted as Nigerians, but Nigerians have also been impacted by this very horrible situation that's going on there. How should we think about the situation there? And what would you say would be the key steps to addressing the challenge there?
Well, about 3 months ago, might have been 2 months actually, I had to give a lecture on xenophobia in global affairs at the Institute of International Affairs. And what I did was to trace the way foreigners are treated from the beginning of civilization. Xenophobia is not even an English word. It's not an African word. I believe it's a Greek word, but it is the ill treatment of non-indigenous. That's the simple translation of it. It has been there from the time civilization grew. People have always detested the presence of foreigners. They have always attributed to foreigners whatever their own society was suffering. So let's get one thing clear. Xenophobia is not a South African phenomenon. Nevertheless, that is not to say that it is justified. It is not justified. It cannot be justified, but it's not new and it's not peculiar to every civilization. Now, what is unique about what is happening in South Africa is the fact that the South Africans suffered in this century anyway from a peculiar form of virus that was called apartheid. And the feeling all over the world was that apartheid was not acceptable or not tolerable in this day and age. And so we all rallied around in order to defeat it. There were some of us, especially on the African continent, some of us in the non-aligned world, some of us in the global south, who, because of the contamination of our independence with the struggle against apartheid, defined our foreign policy in terms of the struggle against apartheid. It gave meaning to our foreign policy. It gave meaning to our moral stature. It gave meaning to what we are and who we are. We did it, as Kennedy put it, because it was the right thing to do. We were not expecting to be recompensed. It was the right thing to do. And we knew that down the line, civilizations will credit us with the fact that we did the right thing. Now, because we are Africans, of course, we put more into the anti-apartheid struggle than other people. Because at that time, and even now, if you or I walk down the street of a European country, they didn't know. They don't know whether we're South Africans or Ghanaians or Nigerians or Gambians. We are Africans. Julius Nyerere, a very wise man, was once asked about how did we know we were different from Europeans. And he said, on the slave ship, we Africans looked at ourselves and we looked at the slave owners, and by just the skin color, we knew we were different. Until today, we have to accept the fact that we are defined. We Africans are defined by our color. Now, that the South Africans have behaved in an abysmal way, in a beastly way, does not negate the fact that we did the right thing at the right time. I myself, I am flabbergasted by the behavior of the South Africans. Some of the responsibility has to be borne by the South African leaders. It's only just now that they are speaking out and speaking boldly about our contribution to the anti-apartheid struggle. I had the benefit of contributed my own quota. At that time, I don't regret it. Not at all. And I think history will judge all of us by our contribution to that cause. I expected that from even the time of Nelson Mandela to Thabo Mbeki to after Thabo Mbeki, you had you had somebody Zuma, thank you, and now Ramaphosa. They should have been speaking out loudly. This is not just a question of these are our brothers. These are our contributors to the cause. They didn't. There was an arrogance in the behavior of the South African leaders, as if we, the blacks, could not contribute anything to what was going on. That it was their white friends. There were even Nigerian leaders who subscribed to that nonsense, that it was our white friends who helped liberate South Africa. That's not true. At least I was involved. So I know the truth. I know the facts. They couldn't accept in their blood that fellow Africans contributed to that cause. And so they went rampaging that it was their white friends who did this. Now that the chicken has come home to roost, now that there is rampant racism, now that there is violence that they cannot even control, it is not that they are saying, wait a minute, these are the people who contributed more than anything else. The president of Mozambique was killed. I attended his funeral. He was killed in the course of fighting apartheid because the South Africans moved to the pillar that to allow his plane to land on a straight course. So that plane ended up, flying into the side of the mountain. That's Mozambique. Zimbabwe was being bombed almost every day by South Africans. So it's not just we Nigerians who contributed and who are suffering now from xenophobic propensity of the South Africans. And so I believe that leaders in Africa, under whatever guise, must call out South Africa. That this has gone on for too long and that it is not tolerable. And if he continues, I'm sure there are things we can do to South Africa, especially now that even South Africa itself has gone making enemies all over the world. There are things we also can do. So I will say that it is very disturbing, very disturbing. And if the South Africans are proud of it, we are not proud of what South Africa is doing.
So when we look at the United States, there was the rhetoric around Make America Great. When I look at the whole UK position on Brexit at the time we had the Brexit, there was a huge amount of emphasis on immigration related issues. It was fought broadly based on the inequality that was perceived at the time, whether rightly or wrongly. And in South Africa's case, again, we're seeing um, this same rhetoric that has weaved itself into the fabric of maybe some quarters and not all, so that I don't generalize. But clearly, we're starting to see lots more of these incidents happening. Is there a way of controlling how politicians use immigration as um, a political a political tool, if you will, just to try to get people on side and to move things forward? Is there a way of curbing that?
I started my contribution by pointing out the lecture I gave at NI. Xenophobia is as old as human civilization. Politicians come in, make their cases in order to win votes. Those votes come not from PhDs. The Socrates are pointed out that democracy is one man, one vote. The vote of the engineer in democracy carries the same weight as the vote of water carrier and so on. So there's nothing you can do about politicians using base arguments in order to get themselves into power, especially when they themselves know that the policies that they are criticizing from their opponents are probably the same policies which they are going to implement when they get into power. So for us to think that there are things we can do in order to in order for politicians to stop behaving like politicians and to start excuse me, to start behaving like angels, well, it has never been done, and so I don't know whether it will ever be done. But keep this in mind, gentlemen, ladies, gentlemen, keep this in mind, that the same civilization that is producing Trump is also the same civilization that's produced Abraham Lincoln, produced John F. Kennedy, produced produced the Clintons, produced the Obama. So in a way, I suppose, in fact, I subscribe to what I will call cyclical civilization. The world turns round, politics turns round, and we shall overcome.
Thank you, sir. Let's go to the United States and look at the issue of the visit of King Charles, well, maybe not the issue, but the visit of King Charles and Queen Camilla to the United States and how he was received. I've had very different views on the speech of the king and how that went. And I was looking forward to hearing your views on the visit, sir, and which areas you would focus on compared to what some of the other analysts were saying. So I was actually looking forward to this particular question.
Thank you. Whoever sent in the question is tweaking my toe. You know, there are several takeaways from this visit. The first one, which I commend to all of us here, the first one was that visit was not cancelled. Because on the eve of that visit, you had that despicable gun attack, attempted assassination at that White House Correspondents' Dinner. That people felt, the king should not go, should not be. And my mind again went back to our own dilemma, which we faced when on I think it was the morning before the visit of our president to the United Kingdom. Again, we had some element of violence in Borno. And of course, some Nigerians immediately jumped onto this, asking that President Tinubu should not go on the trip. Now, in this particular case, there were also Englishmen who felt the king should not go because of what had happened. I'm glad the king went. I mean, apart from the inconvenience of having to unravel all the things that have been laid on, evil was not allowed to prevail. So that's the first takeaway. The second takeaway, and this is maybe where controversy will come in. Normally, the king is apolitical. He doesn't take chances. He doesn't take positions. He's supposed to, stand in the middle. And I am so happy that those who planned that visit deliberately put in that speech to Congress. It could easily have been avoided. But no. I mean, how could the king stand before Congress and, say the banal things that royalty is supposed to say? But they deliberately picked on a speech to Congress as an avenue. People do things deliberately. They just don't stumble into it. As an avenue to express his views and take his stand. Because in a way, he was visiting a controversial man. He was visiting a controversial man. And this was an opportunity for him to say, though I am king, and though I am neutral, the times does not call for neutrality. The times call for me to stand on the issues of the day and be counted. Now the takeaway on that, look at how many standing ovations he got. I mean, I've been following speeches to Congress since 1962 or thereabout. I have never, not even with Her Majesty, have I ever watched the standing ovation, the spontaneous. That is the thing, because at times, you know, some people start clapping and well, others join in and so on. But when, even as I sat here listening to that speech, I could predict where the standing ovation will come because it resonated with what people want to hear. People want people like the king to stand up for them. Not that they can't stand up for themselves, but all animals are not equal. And the king hit the right tone. You couldn't say he gave a you couldn't say he gave a democratic speech or that he gave a Republican speech. I would say he gave a universal speech. And that was kudos for it. So in a way, there is nothing that wisdom cannot attack. If you want to give a banal speech, then the reaction will be banal. If you want to give a speech that is divisive, yeah, you will know from the reaction of people that they think you are greater than this. But when you give a speech that energizes the human faith, when you give a speech that energizes what God has given to us, it shows. And honestly, I congratulate His Majesty King Charles III for the wisdom that went to that speech, number one, the courage to give that speech, because you can't start, you know who you are dealing with. You know who you are dealing with. He's not the type who doesn't mind breaking protocol and attacking you in the process, but he had the courage to say and do the things that he did. And I welcome his I welcome his tapping into Abraham Lincoln. The way he waved that Gettysburg Address speech, that nobody is going to pay attention to what we say. But people will pay attention to what we do. There are problems all over the world, in different countries. People are looking for solutions. People want these problems to be solved. They don't want to know the Lord's Prayer. They want intervention to bring wars to an end. I noticed that our platform is rather quiet today. I welcome people, please, either agreeing with me or disagreeing with me. But
Yes, Ambassador Leo, I can see you have your hand raised, sir. Please go ahead and unmute yourself, sir.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank the Honorable Minister, particularly his view about xenophobia, and to remind everybody that Nigeria contributed more than any other African country, even the Europeans, in bringing about the end of apartheid in Southern Africa. The minister was a minister during that period. He attended the Commonwealth summits, both in the Bahamas, in Vancouver, in Canada, and the ministerial meetings of the Commonwealth everywhere. I was the Commonwealth desk officer in the ministry at that time, and I was privileged to accompany him and our delegation. So much was contributed by Nigeria officially, both in cash and in kind. So much was contributed by Nigerians, especially the civil servants. Hello?
Go ahead, sir.
Especially the civil servants who had some percentage of their salaries cut in order to meet the requirements of the funds needed by Southern Africa. ANC officials were in Nigeria. Nigerians were very hospitable in housing them, in opening our universities and schools for them. Unfortunately, their leaders, like the Honorable Minister had said, are quiet over what is happening there. It is really, I mean, it's unbelievable that after the apartheid ended, I would have thought that first and foremost, they would have honored many African countries, particularly Nigeria, by naming some streets after Nigerian leaders, by erecting monuments in South African cities that will show the contribution of African leaders, particularly those of Nigeria. Saying Nigeria was a frontline state is not enough. We became frontline state because the frontline states themselves, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and everywhere, felt that Tanzania, Kenya, felt that we had contributed so much as if we were part and parcel of those of them facing in the front lines of the struggle against the apartheid. So I would have thought that the leaders would have written books or even put curricula in their schools, from primary school, secondary school to university level, to give a history of the contribution of African countries and other countries, and particularly that of Nigeria. Perhaps if that had existed over the years, those of them who are grown-ups now, who don't even have an idea of the history of the struggle, would have been educated right from primary school up to the current level. Unfortunately, that never happened. I would advocate that the AU should stand up to tell South Africa, to tell the truth about the contribution of African countries to that country during the period of apartheid. Let them educate their people. Awareness campaign has to be done. And if that is not done, let each African country, including Nigeria, especially Nigeria, to start to publish some pamphlets or books and distribute to African countries for them to realize that our sacrifice should not be in vain, for God's sake. In our bilateral relations, or what they call binational, just because of the so-called special relationship with South Africa, that area has to be emphasized. We cannot keep our mouth shut and just be looking, and our people are suffering. But then it is also important for us to educate our own people, particularly the traders. Many of them come from certain parts of Nigeria. Let their governors call them to order, and they should stop spoiling the name of Nigeria wherever they go, as if Nigeria owns the rest of our African countries or even outside Africa, just because they are traders that have money. That shouldn't. We should start to be very serious about our image. Our image has to be preserved. And as for the visit of the king, I'm happy that the king mentioned the issue of the rule of law. And he also mentioned what his own mother had said in the past, that America should not be insular, particularly when he mentioned the issue of not being inward looking.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Professor Akinyemi.
Thank you, sir. I do agree in total with Professor Akinyemi, and I also subscribe to the postulation of Ambassador Lewu. This matter had been discussed on this platform once, when the second xenophobic attack was raised. And I want to repeat and then make a postulation that you will not like, but is the truth. First of all, there will be more and more terrible xenophobic attacks, particularly on Nigerians. I do not want to talk about Zimbabwe and all other countries, particularly on Nigeria. Secondly, I want to say there will not be peace in Nigeria because we have refused to deal with critical issues. Nobody is interested in research finding. One, why will there be more terrible xenophobic attacks on Nigerians? It's simple. When Ambassador Gbenga Ashiru was foreign minister, but let me go to the time Brigadier General Buba Marwa was High Commissioner of Nigeria to South Africa. Chief Olusegun Obasanjo was president. Let me just give that particular example. Buba Marwa telephoned the foreign minister, Oluyemi Adeniji. He couldn't reach him on time. He then called me to say I should quickly go and draw attention of the foreign minister to a radio television program that he listened to. During the radio conversation, they were discussing about contributions to the elimination of apartheid, racial segregation. One of the speakers said, look, Nigeria didn't contribute anything. What Nigeria did was simply for economic, motivational purposes, that we came, all right, as a commercialist,
Yes.
and that we didn't do anything. And then he asked me to tell the foreign minister that the government must quickly learn to document the activities of the Nigerian government and the people of Nigeria.
Yes, sir.
Ambassador Lewu was talking about the civil servants, and I agree with him. They deducted my money, 16 naira, as a clerk, 16 naira. I was working in Lut, Lagos University Teaching Hospital, by that time as an audit clerk. Now, when Olugbenga Ashiru became the minister, I drew his attention to it that, look, there is the need for us, particularly as an institute, to quickly document all activities, all that we have been doing, the scholarships given to many South Africans. He took the matter up and discussed with the South African government, and that is where I'm drawing your attention to. The explanation given to him was that we have two ANCs, African National Congress, the national one at home and the ANC operating abroad. When Gashiru, the minister, was told that Nigeria related with ANC International, the one abroad, and that there was no evidence, no documentation, they don't have records of what Nigeria did. So the ANC at the municipal level, at the domestic level, the national level, they didn't know anything about what we did. And that in this case, Nelson Mandela himself said they recognized what we have done, that they are grateful. But Professor Alaba Ogunsanwo also drew attention to the fact that in South Africa, there is nowhere you will find the name of Nigerian leader or role of Nigeria mentioned, even in their books. You go to African Union, Addis Ababa, you will see the names of those who contributed, their leaders. Well, you have mentioned this. So I subscribe to the idea that one major reason why Professor Akinyemi himself must learn to live longer is simply because this assignment, he must finish. The assignment is there. Either it is the academy that will initiate, either he will want to make the NIA, of which is the chairman, governing council, or it is this thruMYeyes. I think something must be done. Without that, the perception of the South African is that Nigerians are troublemakers. They come to South Africa to make business. They didn't do anything during the anti-apartheid struggle. Why should they now come here and be reaping? In fact, one interview, I think Dr. Ruben Abati, Arise, we normally joke about that. The South African women, they say they prefer Nigerian men than all other men. And now the South Africans are now fighting the Nigerian men in South Africa. That is one problem. So Nigerians are certainly doing well, whether it is business, whether it is running after women. They are good in whatever they are doing. Now, why I say Nigeria will not have peace is this. You know, Muammar Gaddafi made it clear that there will never be peace in Nigeria until Nigeria is divided into Muslim North and Christian South. When he mentioned this, I think it was 2008, 2010, thereabout. The government of Nigeria summoned the Libyan ambassador to Nigeria. What ended it, we don't know. But there is evidence that what Muammar Gaddafi had in mind, which he might have drawn the attention of the federal government to, is still valid. It is still there. So we should investigate what informed Muammar Gaddafi, the rationale behind that particular submission, that there will never be peace in Nigeria until Nigeria is divided into Muslim North and the Christian South. We are not looking at it. I think a government that really wants unity, that wants to talk about the indivisibility of Nigeria, should now look at, should commit, commission scholars, researchers, to find out, to investigate. It is not just carrying guns here and there. Every morning, every time the defense minister or the president will say they are directing the soldiers to do more work. No, more work should be done in research to find out what informed that. This is what I want to say. I will beg Professor Akinyemi himself. The mere fact that he still remains intellectually sagacious there, he should not go to heaven with his knowledge. That knowledge must still be used here in Nigeria to find solution to it. Respectfully submitted. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. I can see Stephen Ambore. Please
Yes.
go ahead and make your contribution. Please be brief. We've got 10 minutes left.
I will try. Thank you very much. I've joined this for over 2 years, and this will be my first intervention.
Thank you very much.
Let me use this opportunity to really thank Prof and every other one that has been contributing. I'm a 2019 Fletcher alumni, and Prof is 1960-something. We were discussing him last week and the opportunity this platform has provided. And just wanted to note that this is great, and I really appreciate. My thought is on South Africa and xenophobia. Honestly speaking, whatever is driven by the mob, even if it has a good intention, it can never go very well. But just like the moderator said, and I was thinking, I'm looking at it from the viewpoint of nationalistic movements. It's very easy to isolate South Africa because of the nature of what is happening. But when you start looking back, I mean, we had our own Ghana must go. Libya has had some instances that there are some foreign people they don't want at all in their country. And during COVID, we saw a lot of things. Because of pressure on supplies, there were some forms of nationalistic movements, you know, and then, of course, Trump has come, and what you rightly mentioned, moderator, with Brexit and UK. I'm thinking Africa. It was close to that Zimbabwe, through Mugabe, tried collecting funds from white people, you know, through a particular program, and it did not go well. So the question I want to ask is this xenophobia? Because the reason why I'm keen on this xenophobia thing, if you flip it, it's basically the same thing that Trump is doing or saying. It's just that for xenophobia, it's the mob that is driving it, and then in instances like America, it's the leadership that is driving it. So I'm looking at it from the viewpoint of nationalistic movements. Is Africa not doing it well? Why is it that if Africa gets into the realm of nationalistic movement, it goes very bad? I mean, for Zimbabwe and Mugabe, it didn't go well. And South Africa, of course, the political leadership are not taking responsibility and they are keeping quiet. So my question is this not a nationalistic movement that is being driven by the wrong people? Is there a way Africans can truly, if needed, drive a nationalistic movement and make it successful? Just wanted to add that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Prof, do you want to respond to the question before I take a comment in the chat? And I can see Dr. Thomas also has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. No, I do understand. Because you see, in a way, you yourself raised it. When politicians have interests and nations have interests, what do they use to drive those interests? And that's why I also started the conversation by making reference to the lecture that I gave that shows that xenophobia is not a national thing. The language is Greek, and we all buy into it. Let me quickly make one correction, because my friend said we asked that Ghana must go in Nigeria. I once had a confrontation with J.J. Rollins of blessed memory, and I pointed out to him that it was Busia who first expelled Nigerians from Ghana before Buhari Shagari now expelled Ghanaians from Nigeria. We must, something that really pained my heart was the last visit of J.J. Rollins to Nigeria. And he was speaking to a Nigerian audience. And he accused us of being the first to expel Ghanaians. And you know what? Nigerians clapped. They clapped. I sat there on the high table, debating within me, should I correct J.J. Rollins again or just let it go? I decided to let it go because I don't like confrontations. I might have been wrong. But anyway, that is by the side. So in a way, people will use any means to advance their cause. Xenophobia is bad. It's unacceptable. This is not the last time it will happen. Believe me, it will continue to happen because politicians will find it easy as a means to use. So that's my reaction to that.
Thank you, sir. Manio Chugboju says in the chat, as university students in the early 80s, in the heydays of anti-apartheid struggle, we formed the Youth Solidarity on South Africa, USA, in various campuses to drum up moral and material support for the liberation of South Africa, including Namibia, Mozambique, Angola, and Zimbabwe. And this person doesn't have a name here, but just says they love to see the collaboration between Professor Akinyemi, Ambassador Lewu, and Professor Akinyemi. I think there's a lot of firepower in those three names put together. Dr. Thomas, please go ahead and make your contribution, sir.
Well, I want to ask Prof and Ambassador Lewu the issue of Nigeria financing the anti-apartheid struggle and everything. One rule, there is still a particular mystery around our contributions. I remember very well on so many occasions that each time one was talking about Nigerians' contributions, but the question people ask us is, are we sure that the monies being released were not only on paper? How are you sure that the monies were getting to the source? because I don't think that a old Mandela would flow with general sentiments and general sentiments against Nigeria by ascribing the struggle leadership, the struggle leadership as per Africa or as it relates to Africa to Gaddafi. Because what we knew in Nigeria then was that we were in fact, we had the impression at that stage that the huge percentage, massive percentage of the contributions were being made by Nigeria because our noise was too much from different angles. So I'm asking Prof, as a politically now, that can he assure us, or is he sure, even as at today, that the money that the government was releasing actually got to them, to the ANC headquarters? Because if we don't have any leader in Nigeria, if we don't have any street named after any leader in Nigeria, whether it was Obasanjo, whether it was Muritala, whether it was Gowon, being named after any of these leaders, any street being named in South Africa after any of these leaders, then definitely there is nothing institutional to tie our contributions to the struggle. And so when these children, because those who are participating now definitely will be children, maybe some of them were not even, don't have anything in history, or don't have any documents or anything at all tying us to tying our participation to, tying our leaders or our country to the struggle, then we cannot blame them for being xenophobic or for being vengeful against Nigerians. That's one. Ambassador Level 2 can also explain from the civil service point of view whether actually the money was getting there. Because it still remains a riddle. I think Professor Akinyemi was trying to help us out, but unfortunately I didn't get it. So that's one. Then two, I'm angry with the government. In fact, all the previous governments that participated or contributed money, because there were no efforts made to establish or to establish any institutional investment, whether at the level of business opportunities or at the level of cultural cultural attachment. So if we are not sure that the money was getting to the sources, to the resource or sources, and if we do not have institutional investment, now South Africa has DSTV, has MTN. Nigeria does not have anything. So we were just pumping money out, whether for our own good, because people were happy, excited, and everything that we are supporting South Africa. We never knew where the money was going, because I don't know why there was no department or any section of the government that will be thinking of opportunities that will come after the struggle had ended. So I'm very confused. I really want to get some responses from.
Thank you thank you very much, sir. Maybe I take Professor Akinyemi first, because I saw. Please go ahead and unmute yourself, sir, and then we round up with Professor Akinyemi. We're literally just bang on time.
Thank you, sir. My brother Dapotowas raised some critical questions, but I just want to draw attention to 2 or 3 things without expatiating, so that when eventually Professor Akinyemi takes the renew the initiative to do work on this, we will be talking about that. In 1963, Jaja Washoku came up with the policy that no compromise with apartheid. No compromise with apartheid. This is one policy that, in terms of both international law and Nigeria's foreign policy, has always been ignored by scholars. Article 2, paragraph 7 of the United Nations Charter says no intervention in the domestic affairs of other sovereign states. But Nigeria said, under no circumstance shall apartheid racial segregation be considered an internal affair of any country. That this time Nigeria will intervene. It's not just interfere. Secondly, in the early 60s to early 70s, the passport of Nigeria, Federal Republic of Nigeria from 1963, at the inner back cover, it is clearly printed there in black and white. Go and get a copy. It says that the holder of this passport shall use whatever means available to him or her, him/her, to fight, including the use of weapon, to fight apartheid. That's the foundation of our attitudinal disposition to South Africa. More importantly, the policy is that anything that happens to any South African should be considered as happening to a Nigerian here. So before going to say Nigeria is frontline state, etc., you should bear in mind that apart from the Nordic countries, Sweden, that first served as chairman of the UN anti-apartheid committee in the UN, all the other chairmen, they were Nigerians. They were all Nigerians. So this should let you know that even if there are money diverted elsewhere, nobody can close his or her eyes. South Africans cannot say they are blind or they wouldn't know what roles we played at the UN. And this deputy governor in Lagos, this woman, she was then, I've forgotten her name now. She was in the political affairs office in Lagos. The documentation, the money, the transference, Baba Dako Thomas, to please find time to go there. I've been there.
Yes, sir.
I've tried to carry it out, sir, that those who are claiming money have been diverted. Well, probably they stole part of that. But South Africans came to UI, scholarships. All those people fighting, they came to Nigeria. That's why I have said that the South African government said Nigeria related more with ANCs international, and that there was no coordination between the international wing and the local wing. They don't have the records. That's why there is the need for us, including Dr. Thomas. Everybody should now come.
Yes. Looks like we've lost. Oh, all right. I'm going to bring the program to a close. Ambassador Lewo, I know that you've got your hand raised, but I think we're over time. I'd like to bring the program to a close. So apologies, sir, for that. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back next week and we'll pick more topical issues. Thank you very much, Prof. Once again, sir. And we'll be back next week.
Mr. Moderator.
Oh, yes, sir.
Please, just one word.
Yes, sir.
Because this question of money, whenever it comes up, Nigerians become worked up. So let me say what I know. I wish, because Ambassador Leo, being the civil servant, you know they get a lot of paperwork that goes through them. But let me say two things. Number one, I know I was called in by President Babangida and given a check for $1 million to hand over to the government of Zimbabwe on the eve of a conference. I got my permanent secretary under instructions to deliver that money within 24 hours. And he did. Number two, at times prayed not to work under military regime because they have their own line of communication. And I know that military officers were also given money to take to Southern Africa. That much I know. So what is the totality of our financial contribution? I don't know. And I think Bola Akinyemi is right. You go to the cabinet office and see what documents they have there. We were totally disorganized. And as Obasanjo said in his speech, I think yesterday or so, that they were naive. And to that extent, they skipped due process. But I swear to the one that was given to me, I delivered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. On that note, we'll be back next week. Have a very good week, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you.